The city was alive with celebration that night. Lights shimmered across tall buildings. Music echoed from crowded restaurants. And laughter spilled onto the streets as families gathered to celebrate a special holiday. For most people, it was a night of warmth, food, and togetherness. But on a narrow sidewalk near the edge of a busy square, a very different scene quietly unfolded. A small disabled girl sat alone in a worn-out wheelchair. She looked no older than 10. Her jacket was too thin for the cold, her hands red and trembling, as she carefully placed a tiny candle into a paper cup. There was no cake, no gift, no one standing beside her, just the candle and a soft smile on her face. She leaned forward and gently lit the candle with a borrowed match. The flame flickered as the wind pushed against it, but she protected it with her hands, as if guarding something precious. Then she clapped quietly for herself, her eyes shining. It was her birthday. No one noticed. People passed by, carrying shopping bags and balloons. Some glanced at her and quickly looked away. Others pretended she was invisible. To them, she was just another homeless child. Another uncomfortable sight they did not want to acknowledge on a happy night. The girl did not seem angry. She did not cry. She simply looked at the candle and whispered, "Happy birthday to me." Across the street, a black luxury car slowed down near the traffic light. Inside sat Ethan Blackwood, a billionaire businessman known across the country. He owned companies, skyscrapers, and influence that reached far beyond the city. Tonight, he was on his way to an exclusive private celebration, hosted by powerful people. His phone buzzed constantly with messages and reminders. But Ethan was not looking at his phone. His eyes were fixed on the sidewalk. At first, he only noticed the small flame. Then he saw the wheelchair. And finally, he saw the girl smiling at a single candle like it was the greatest gift in the world. Something tightened in his chest. "Stop the car," he said suddenly. His driver hesitated. "Sir, traffic is heavy, and we are already late." Ethan did not respond. He was still staring at the girl. "I said stop," he repeated, his voice calm but firm. The car pulled over. People nearby began to notice. A few recognized him instantly. Whispers started. Phones were raised. Ethan stepped out into the cold night air, ignoring the attention. He crossed the street slowly, his polished shoes touching the same ground that so many had just walked past without seeing what he saw. The girl looked up. When she sensed someone standing in front of her, her smile faded for a moment as she took in the tall man in an expensive coat. "I am sorry," she said quickly. "I will move if I am in the way." "You are not in the way," Ethan replied gently. "Not at all." She looked confused. He crouched down so they were at eye level. Up close, he could see how thin she was, how tired her eyes looked, and how carefully she was trying to be brave. "What is your name?" he asked. "Lena," she answered softly. "That is a beautiful name," he said. "Happy birthday." Lena, her eyes widened in surprise. "You know, I saw your candle," he said. "Are you celebrating alone?" She nodded. "It is okay. I am used to it." Those words hit him harder than anything else she could have said. Ethan glanced around. People had stopped walking. A small crowd was forming, watching silently. No one spoke. "Where is your family?" he asked as Lena looked down at her hands. "I do not have one. My mom died when I was little. After that, I was on my own." "And your legs?" he asked carefully. "They stopped working after an accident," she replied. "Doctors are expensive." Ethan swallowed. He had spent more money on a single business dinner than this child would ever see in her lifetime. "You should be warm," he said, standing up and taking off his coat. He gently placed it around her shoulders before she could refuse. Her eyes filled with tears. "You do not have to do that." "I want to," he said. From the corner of his eye, Ethan noticed the cameras. He turned to his assistant, who had followed him nervously. "Call the nearest bakery," he said. "Now." The assistant blinked. "Sir, a birthday cake," Ethan repeated. "And blankets, and food." Within minutes, people from nearby shops rushed over. Someone brought hot soup. Someone else brought a real cake, small but beautifully decorated. The candle was replaced with many brighter ones. Lena stared in disbelief. "This is for me?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Yes," Ethan said. "All of it." For the first time that night, the crowd clapped. Some wiped their eyes. Others whispered prayers. The girl closed her eyes as Ethan lit the candles. "Make a wish," he said. She hesitated, then whispered, "I wish I could have a home, and I wish I could walk again." The words hung in the air. Ethan felt a deep ache in his chest. He had heard many wishes in his life. None had ever sounded like this. She blew out the candles, and everyone cheered softly. For a brief moment, Lena was no longer invisible. After she ate, Ethan stayed beside her, listening as she spoke about sleeping near shelters, about nights when it rained, about watching other children go to school from the sidewalk. She spoke without anger, as if this life was simply something she had accepted. Ethan listened in silence. He remembered his own childhood, growing up poor, watching his mother struggle. But even then, he had a roof. He had hope. Lena had neither. "Lena," he said finally, "would you like to come somewhere warm tonight?" She looked scared. "I cannot pay." "You do not need to," he replied. "Just trust me." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. As Ethan helped arrange her wheelchair into the car, flashes of cameras lit up the street. Headlines were already being written. People thought they knew what was happening. They had no idea. As the car drove away, Lena held the edge of the seat tightly, afraid this was all a dream that would disappear. Ethan looked at her reflection in the window and made a decision that would change far more than just one life. What he planned next was something no one expected, and it was only the beginning. The car moved smoothly through the quiet streets, leaving behind the noise and flashing lights of the celebration. Lena sat silently, her small hands gripping the blanket Ethan had wrapped around her. She kept looking out the window, half expecting everything to disappear if she blinked too long. "Are you scared?" Ethan asked gently. "A little," she admitted. "Good things don't usually happen to me." Those words stayed with him as they arrived at a private medical residence owned by his foundation. It wasn't a hospital in the traditional sense. It felt warm, calm, and safe. Soft lights, clean hallways, and people who smiled without judgment. As soon as they entered, staff rushed forward, but Ethan raised his hand. "Be gentle," he said. "She's been through enough." Lena was given a warm room, a real bed, and clothes that actually fit her. When she touched the soft blanket on the bed, she froze. "Can I really sleep here?" she asked. "Yes," Ethan replied, "as long as you want." That night, Lena slept deeper than she ever had in her life. The next morning began with doctors, not rushed ones, not cold ones, but specialists who spoke softly and explained everything. They examined her legs, reviewed old injuries, and ran scans Lena had never been able to afford. Ethan watched from outside the room, his face serious. After hours, one of the doctors approached him. "Her condition is not hopeless," the doctor said. "With surgery, therapy, and time, there is a strong chance she can walk again." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. "Do everything," he said. "Cost is not a concern." When Lena heard the news, she didn't scream or celebrate. She just stared at the doctor. "You mean, really?" she asked. "Not just a little." "Yes," the doctor smiled. "Really." Tears streamed down her face, silent and heavy. She had imagined this moment so many times, but never believed it would come. The surgery happened weeks later. It was long and complicated. Ethan waited the entire time, refusing to leave. When the doctors finally came out with good news, he felt something he had not felt in years. Relief mixed with purpose. Recovery was hard, painful, slow. There were days Lena wanted to give up, days when she cried and asked why it hurt so much. And every time, Ethan was there, sitting nearby, encouraging her, reminding her why she started. "You survived the streets," he told her once. "This is nothing compared to that." Months passed. Lena learned to stand again. Her legs shook. She fell more times than she could count, but she always got back up. The first step happened quietly. No cameras, no crowd, just Lena, the therapist, and Ethan, standing near the door. She lifted her foot. Then she placed it forward. She stood there, frozen in shock. "I did it," she whispered. Ethan felt his eyes burn. "Yes," he said softly. "You did." News eventually spread. The story of the homeless disabled girl and the billionaire who stopped his car went viral. People praised Ethan, but he never liked the attention. "This isn't about me," he told reporters. "It's about what happens when we choose to see." He created the Lena Foundation shortly after. It focused on homeless and disabled children, providing medical care, shelter, and education. Thousands were helped within the first year. As for Lena, her life transformed completely. She went to school for the first time. She made friends. She laughed loudly. She argued about homework. She discovered she loved drawing and dreamed of becoming an artist. On her next birthday, there was a cake, a real one. Balloons filled the room. Children sang to her. Ethan stood quietly at the back, smiling. After everyone left, Lena walked over to him. "I still like one candle best," she said. "Why?" he asked. "Because it reminds me," she replied. "That night, when you saw me." Ethan knelt beside her. "That night," he said, "you reminded me too." Years later, Lena would stand on a stage, walking confidently, telling her story to the world. And every time she did, she ended with the same message. You don't have to be rich to change your life, she said. You just have to notice. And somewhere in the crowd, Ethan would listen, knowing that the most powerful decision he ever made was simply stopping his car.